We are now going to hear from Don Rakow, Associate Professor in the School of Integrative Plant Science at Cornell University. Don's time is split between looking at the history, management, and social roles of public gardens and the human benefits of time in nature. And he has he's the coordinator of the Nature Rx Cornell, and many of you know him as the author of our beloved weekly Campus Nature Network's RX newsletter. Don has co-authored several books on these subjects, and so we welcome Don.
Thanks so much, Jason. So it's really a pleasure for me to speak with all of you this afternoon. I really appreciate that so many of you have hung in on what is a fairly long day, but we hope that you've been finding it all worthwhile. So I would like to talk about our Nature Rx at Cornell program, and I have to forewarn you that I'm going to start with the dire news, with the more upsetting bits of information, but hang in there because I will transition to more positive material. So it should come as no surprise to any of us that we are living in a highly stressed and anxious time. The layered effects of the global pandemic, the economic recession, protests for racial justice, and our highly polarized electorate has left just about everyone in a state of high anxiety. I feel like every day I hear someone say, "I just can't wait till this election is over." Well, I think it's affecting all of us, but perhaps it is more true for college-age students than for any other group. Several weeks ago, the New York Times ran a piece in their checkup column, Young Adults' Pandemic Mental Health Risks. And they quoted a new Centers for Disease Control survey, which found that the highest levels of anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation was among 18 to 24-year-olds. That is our college-aged population. And then just about a month ago, Huffington Post ran a piece that talked about how there was a college mental health crisis before COVID-19, and now it may be even worse. And it looked at ways in which the pandemic is increasing anxiety and depression among young people and speculated on what things could be done about that. So habitual stress that develops in the middle childhood years can follow young people as they progress into their teenage years and then into college. There have been 3 recent reports that have painted a portrait of university students absolutely in crisis. A 2019 National College Health Assessment conducted by the American College Health Association reported that 45% of respondents indicated that they had felt a high degree of stress in the previous 6 months. Similarly, the Center for Collegiate Mental Health also found in 2019 that average rates of self-reported anxiety and depression had increased over the past 8 years. And then finally, the 2019 annual survey from the Association for University and College Counseling Center Directors found that the most common mental health problems among students that they had treated were anxiety, depression, and stress. The Cornell University campus is often ranked as one of the most beautiful in the US, but we also have very high rates of mental health challenges among our students. In fact, just yesterday, Cornell issued a mental health report based on a year-long internal and external study. It found, in part, that, quote, conservative estimates indicate that 20 to 35% of college students may face mental health challenges of various severity during their years of college, and that more students are coming to Cornell with pre-existing mental health diagnoses, and there has been an increase in student distress related to local and national events, particularly for students of color. Later in the report, it states, we have observed that the culture of competition may take on an unhealthy cycle of expectation and behavior that can reach traumatizing levels for students, faculty, and staff. In this high-stress environment, students find it difficult to prioritize their own well-being. Okay, now I'm going to get beyond the dire part of this presentation, but I did feel that it was critical to provide that context. A group of us at Cornell are interested in student attitudes toward and involvement with nature when these are being formed. So in 2018, we invited Cornell undergraduates to participate in a 21-question survey. And it examined such things as, during your middle childhood years, did you reside in a large city, a small city or town, a suburb, or a rural area? What types of nature experiences did you have in your middle childhood years? And how frequently do you recall being out in nature as a preteen? In a paper, to be published in next month's Frontiers in Psychology, we found that there was a large decrease in nature engagement from middle childhood to undergraduate years for most participants. This wasn't surprising because other papers have also indicated that youth in their middle childhood years have typically the highest level of nature engagement, and that it then declines in teenage years as teenagers become more preoccupied with other matters. But we also found that there was a significant positive correlation between nature engagement in the middle childhood years and nature engagement as college undergraduates. We also found a positive correlation between middle childhood year nature engagement and undergraduate pro-environmental attitudes. So these findings are consistent with a number of other studies, and they reinforce the importance of getting young children and kids in their middle childhood years out into nature. So in a paper that we will be publishing, or actually have just recently published, we've summarized this, and we've gone on to study what is the minimum time dose in nature to positively impact the mental health of college-age students and how to measure it. So this was a scoping review in which we started with over 1,000 papers, winnowed that down to about 14 studies, and found that when two equal-sized groups are assigned to either walk for a period of time in a natural setting or walk for an equal amount of time in a very urban setting. As little as 10 minutes can have a significant and measurable impact on various human biomarkers like salivary cortisol levels. So earlier, Jason was talking, and Tim were talking about spending 20 minutes in nature. Based on this scoping review, we found that as little as 10 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week, can really increase young people's well-being. So the question then isn't, is nature beneficial for college students, but rather, how do we influence students to spend more time out in nature? So our response was to create the Nature Rx at Cornell program, whose mission, as you can see here, is to reduce stress, reduce stress and thereby increase physical and mental health in students through their engagement with nature, and to cultivate in students an increased appreciation of nature. What I'd like to do next is take you through several steps of how our program was developed. In establishing a program like Nature Rx at Cornell, it's critical that it have the support of the university administration. 3 leaders who have been especially supportive of the Nature Rx at Cornell program have been Vice President for Student and Campus Life, Ryan Lombardi, Dean of Students Vijay Pendakur, and Vijay, we're sorry that you've left Cornell, and Catherine Thrasher Carroll, Director of the Scorton Center for Health Initiatives, who is with us today. One of the things that I advise when groups are interested in developing a Nature Rx program is to look across their campus for allies. In addition to the administrators I just mentioned, we have a Nature Rx advisory committee, much like the one that Jason Hamilton outlined at Ithaca College. We have representatives on our committee from Cornell Botanic Gardens, the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, Cornell Health Center, Cornell Outdoor Education, the Dean of Students Office, Career Services, the LGBTQ Advocacy Center, as well as several faculty members and undergraduate and graduate students. And I gain tremendously from the counsel and ideas that these individuals provide. I'm often asked, how much does the Nature Rx program cost annually? It must be a fortune. Well, with the exception of putting on this symposium, for which we are very grateful for Vice President Lombardi's support, the answer to the question of how much the Nature Rx program costs each year is 0. Because everyone involved with this effort, from graphic designers to webmasters to landscape architect to social media specialist, is donating their time because they're already on salary and because they believe in this effort. So the project is sustainable because it's effective, but also because it doesn't cost the university anything extra. Nearly every member of the student body in a normal academic year, which this is not, winds up at the campus health facility sometime during the school year. Students suffering from stress, depression, sleep deprivation, physical cutting, obesity, or inactivity, or social isolation can be prescribed time in nature as part of their overall treatment. The Nature Prescription Program at Cornell is based on the PARC prescription program developed by Robert Czar in Washington, D.C. And both Michelle Kondo and Jennifer spoke about the program that Dr. Czar has created, PARC RX America, for which he currently serves as medical director. So this approach to healthcare provides a new set of tools for health practitioners in which the individual participates in their health management. And they do that by going out into nature for intentional periods of time on a regular basis. So at Cornell, the health prescription program started by having health practitioners hand out the quarter card that you see on the left. Spend time in nature. Research shows spending quality time in nature is good for your overall health and well-being. Well, this was a great first step. What we found is that students receive volumes of paperwork and they don't always pay attention to it. Often it goes into the trash or hopefully at least the recycling bin. So starting last year, working with Cornell Health, we were able to actually get the Nature Rx prescription as an option on the student's electronic health record. And as you see here, health professionals can check off Nature Rx discussed and recommended. And this past year, before the university shut down on March 13th, there were 1,053 students who had this box checked off on their electronic health record. As part of this effort last year, staff at Cornell Health devised a confidential and anonymous survey that was sent to each of the 1,000 plus students who had gotten Nature Rx prescriptions. Our intentions in sending this survey were to find out how many of the students had actually changed the frequency with which they had nature experiences. And for those students who were going out into nature more often, how it was affecting their stress levels, their social dynamics and ability to make friendships, and even their academic performance. Well, as has been mentioned frequently throughout the day, then the pandemic hit. So that really put this effort on hold, and it's one that we're hoping to resume in the fall 2021 academic year. A second component of our Nature Rx program is a Nature Rx course, Plant Science 1125. Similar to the freshman seminar that Haven and Stacy described earlier, the goals of this program are to expose students to the range of natural and landscape sites around and near campus, and to have each of the students develop a closer and more intimate relationship with the natural world. And here we can see Dr. Robert Czar, when he visited Cornell in September of last year, leading a forest therapy session with the Nature Rx students. So the students in this course are exposed to a range of experiences in all types of weather, including last year, a late fall day of exercises at the Hoffman Challenge course. Students in the course are also each asked to select a spot of peace and calm, and similar to what Tim Drake was describing, to develop an intimate relationship with this spot. I ask each of the students to write reflective essays based on that relationship, and then to create something non-written that somehow expresses that relationship with their special spot. A current applied research project that we've developed jointly with both Haven and Stacy has to do with examining the impact of our respective courses on the students' attitudes toward and comfort with nature. Both of us administered surveys at the very beginning of the course, and then a very similar survey at the end of the course, and have found that there were a number of interesting results. We focused the questions on things such as well-being, social connections, amount of time spent outside, and the relationship of those things to self-reported stress management and academic performance. While we found no changes in self-perceived stress over the course of the semester, and that might have to do with what Jason and Tim were describing as the students staying within their own minds rather than really giving themselves over to nature. But in the reflective essays that the students wrote for both courses, we found that they strengthened their beliefs in the value of spending time in nature, and they had better social bonds. And at least in the case of the UC Davis students, it helped them to focus on their schoolwork. A third component of the Nature Rx program at Cornell is a responsive website, which consists of 15 natural and landscape sites around campus and GPS-based directions for how to get from wherever you are currently to the nearest green space. The site is naturerx.cornell.edu, and through their use of this site, we want students to recognize that nature is nearby and doesn't require a large block of time to explore. In fact, nature is always within 5 minutes of wherever you are. We've also worked with the communications arm of Cornell Health to develop a series of PDF slides for media walls in dorms, building foyers, and dining halls around campus. So currently there are several slides in the Did You Know That Time in Nature series, and each one depicts a known benefit of spending time in nature, and each includes citations to studies that have verified that benefit. So this approach really appeals to us because it potentially reaches all students, not just those at the Cornell Health Clinic. Students who are already engaged with nature can be recruited to form a Nature Rx club. And members of our club organize such things as weekly nature walks, natural area cleanups, invasive species removals, geocaching contests, or visits to nearby natural wonders. But I will share with you that sustaining a student club is one of the more challenging components of this program because students have many competing demands on their time and often have things that come up at the last minute. An additional challenge that we have in the Northeast is our 7-month winter season. So University of Minnesota, we don't have snow on the ground yet, but we know it's coming soon. So many students can be more reluctant to be outside more than absolutely necessary during the winter. The key is to change the mindset. Have students venture outside on chilly but sunny days, and then when it does snow, offer students equipment and lessons and sites for winter sports, because all students can participate in cross-country skiing or snowshoeing or sledding. I love the comment that David Matzenbecker made earlier. Winter also offers us another level of beauty, silence, and a segment of the cycle of senescence and reemergence to embrace and contemplate. It's only as cold as your gear, and you don't have to have tons of expensive gear. Layering for warmth can be done with what you've got. So thank you for that, David. As part of our Nature Rx at Cornell program, we are also committed to get all students more interested in spending time in nature, regardless of their major, ethnicity, race, or background. So with so many students at Cornell and at colleges and universities around the country now taking classes online, we really need to re-examine the role of the physical campus as part of the college experience. I really feel that the buildings, infrastructure, and green spaces of a campus leave indelible marks on young people, providing a true sense of place, as Stacy Parker spoke about so eloquently earlier. Green spaces also provide young people with a lasting connection to their alma mater, and this nurturing environment can go so far toward healing troubled minds and contributing to overall well-being. That's really what we're trying to achieve through the Nature Rx at Cornell program. I will finish by mentioning that I'm the co-author with the late Dr. Greg Eels of the text Nature Rx, Improving College Student Mental Health, which was published by Cornell University Press in 2019. Quick word about Greg Eels. He was an exceptional individual who devoted himself to improving the lives at the universities at which he worked, and it was an honor to work with him on that. Finally, as Jason mentioned, I do coordinate the Campus Nature Rx Network and do send an e-newsletter to all of the members of that every Friday, except for this Friday, and invite any campuses that would like to join that network to just contact me at dr14@cornell.edu. Thank you.